Among our agenda items for today, this is the first that will kick off a series where we're hearing from some of our existing grantees. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for the folks who are sitting next to me. I'm joined by a team of folks who know what it's like to sit where you are sitting. Now, literally, they were sitting here just last year. We were in Fort Worth at training for the 2011 disasters. But I really want to highlight three things, one for each of them before I turn over into our comments. For the Texas team, Jorge Ramirez from the Texas General Land Office. Texas had a sizable grant of $3 billion after 2008 Hurricane Ike. And so they can give you the experience of a large-scale disaster response, what it's like in terms of what they had to take into account for assessing needs. Then we have Minot, North Dakota, the gem of the group because they're unique. Minot was not a CDBG entitlement before. They received an allocation, but sure enough, I bet you know something now, Cindy. So Cindy Hemphill joins us from Minot, North Dakota. And then from the town of Union. The town of Union, actually also in New York, presents what I like to think is very much akin to the experience of non-state grantees for one, but also just the day-to-day operations. Much of their experience and what he'll talk about in terms of their level of assessing needs, it's pretty interesting, and I think it reflects the scale of the audience in this room. And thank you, Paul, for joining us. With that, I will open it up with just a general comment. As a reminder for those who are joining us this evening for dinner, there are two things that you need to remember. One is to see Anne-Marie Ubing. Anne-Marie can stand up. She will not only need your payment, but to identify how much additional transportation we need. She needs to know if you need transportation, and for those who are driving, if you can accommodate others. And where can they meet you, Anne-Marie?
Well, I'll be right at the table there, or I'll be right outside, but I'm just trying to get an idea because we're going to direct the person. So how many people who are not have cars or looking for if you brought a car here and you're willing to drive, I need to direct them. Otherwise, we're going to get banned and
All right. All right.
So how many drive in each direction?
I think that was two. I think that's just two. Thank you. With that, as a reminder for those who are current Sandy grantees, so those who are under the notice that we just published, there's a significant amount of information related to assessing your needs. For those who have funding from previous disasters, I would suggest you take a close read to what we have in the notice for Sandy. One, because if there is an additional allocation and for what you're eligible for, it will model some of the very things that you see in that notice. With that, I'll turn it over to the group and let them begin the presentation.
They took a vote and I didn't win. So that means I'm going to start, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what specifically we've done in Minot, and it's not from a technical, it's more from about trying to meet the needs of the city and the citizens. And so we identified that the city had needs, citizens had needs, and that coordination was going to become a very big part of trying to assess what the needs were and what should be funded with the CDBG disaster dollars. And of course, on top of all of that, we had to keep in mind the national objectives, which are benefiting the low and moderate income, meeting urgent needs, and preventing or eliminating slum or blight. In Minot, we're very fortunate that we do not have slums or blight, so we were able to kind of cross that off our list, and we've been able to focus primarily on benefiting the low and moderate in meeting the urgent needs and keeping that 51% that needs to be met for the low to moderate income part. One thing that we found with the coordination, we found very quickly that to assess our needs that we needed to have our federal partners, and has been talked about earlier today, using FEMA's information, using SBA information, and in everything that is available to find out the data that they had collected throughout the flood event that we had was very important, so that we knew an area there to target, and then actually just having our federal partners with us as we develop this to kind of keep us in line and to provide guidance from experience that they had with previous disasters. The other one that we found that was incredibly important that we hadn't looked to immediately to help us assess our needs is the volunteer organizations. There were many that came into our community and that are still there or have been someplace else before where there were disasters, and they certainly reach the people, I think, much more than we do sitting at City Hall, and the information that they were able to provide and still provide in the organization that they bring to us, and one thing is that it helps so that we don't duplicate efforts. And so working with our volunteer organizations, we found out it took us a little while, and we had some knocks on the head there that weren't necessarily good. And then, of course, our state partners were very important with us helping assess what our needs were. I'm lucky, I guess, I come from a small state, and we're very fortunate that we have a direct line to the governor's office, and he has provided staff and resources that have been really good help for us in assessing our needs. But getting to what we really kind of focused on was our city needs then, and then our citizen needs. And the city of Minot was inundated with about 27,400 CFS of water, and on a normal times we have a little over 1,000 to 2,000 CFS that come through the city. And our flood was very unique that it came in the summertime and the waters didn't recede for over a month. So we had a lot of infrastructure that was damaged, and that was fairly easy to identify. And so we have been able to go in and fix such thing as lift stations. One thing that was really unique, not unique, but happened to us is we're a community of a little less than 50,000, and from all the debris we had over 4,000 houses, which was a quarter of our housing stock that was damaged, and the debris that had came out of them filled our landfill up. So we had an urgent need there that we were able to identify, that we have to expand another cell in our landfill, and we have to buy additional land so that we can continue, because we are a regional landfill for the northwest region of North Dakota. So things like that became fairly obvious. Other areas that became very obvious, because another unique thing about Minot is we're in the middle of an oil boom. We're on the edges of what's happening on the Bakken shale play in western North Dakota. So prior to the flood, there was no vacancies. I mean, vacancy rates in apartments were less than 1%. We've doubled our hotel capacity from about 1,500 rooms to 3,200 rooms in 2 years. So right there, certain things are very obvious. So we have really tried to focus on getting some low to moderate income multifamily, and we're actually working on developing a whole neighborhood that we hope to be a mixed-use neighborhood. And we had over 2,000 families that were in FEMA trailers, and we still have about, I think, 400 families that are still in FEMA trailers. And so we're trying to develop a long-term commercial trailer park, and then have apartments, and then single-family homes. And what we're trying to do there is actually put in the infrastructure, and we're having a few struggles there, and so we're going back and we're reassessing needs, and I believe that we're going to have to probably make a change to our action plan to be also include some down payment assistance, so that these folks will be able to qualify to get the loan and be able to move into housing, permanent housing, because everything is just so unaffordable in Minot right now because of the oil boom. So we've kind of had to work with a number of different things. And the other thing that we've done is a lot of the homes that were, are you guys timing me? Have I talked too long?
Nope.
No.
Sorry. I moved my hand. I didn't mean to do it.
The other thing is that one question I had today even was, why don't you relocate these people out of the valley where the river is? And because, again, of the lack of affordable housing stock, the need, we've been able to assess the need is there, that we do have to go back in and we have to rehabilitate homes and we have to reconstruct homes. So working again with all of our partners, and specifically the volunteers, and we're even doing for some of the homes that we've acquired for the long-term flood project, working with the volunteer organizations. If there is not lead-based paint or asbestos issues, we're going to put some of them up for sale if people have a place to relocate them. And then if nobody wants to purchase them, instead of just demolish them, we're going to let the volunteer organizations come in and take out cabinets and different things like that if they're if they're salvageable, to try and help with needs in other areas that the volunteer organizations haven't been able to meet. So I'll keep it at that. So those are some of the ways that we have assessed our needs, and I think the biggest thing I can leave with you is to listen to the people, because they're the ones that really know what they want. That goes beyond what you need for city infrastructure needs, that the people at the city undoubtedly are very aware of what those needs are.
Good afternoon. My name is Jorge. Let me give you a little bit of background of the GLO. When this program began, it began in two different agencies. One was doing infrastructure and the other one was doing housing. At some point in time, and it's around 2011, it was decided that it just wasn't working, and it needed to. And it needed to be put under an elected official. And that elected official is Jerry Patterson under the General Land Office, which is an agency that does a lot of related stuff, oil and gas, coastal, etc. It brought up a unique situation for us because we were re-engineering the airplane while we were flying it. And I know exactly where you guys are. So I want to emphasize that what Steve had said, that call us, call any of your peers, because we've been just as lost as you were. And we've bumped our heads several times, and we have unique solutions. And they may not be the solutions that you guys are looking for, but you can at least see our perspective. I don't know how it is in New Jersey, but with us, a little closer, geez, okay. I don't know how it is with over in New Jersey, but in all the other grantees, but with respect to the state of Texas, the money went to the state, and then it went to something called a COG, which is a regional area of government, and then it went to the community. So we actually had to do a two-part assessment. The first part was a regional part, and the second part was a local part. In the regional assessment, we had to break up this grant into chunks. This is the state of Texas, 62 counties, the entire coast, and we divided it up into big pieces where we were giving 200 million, 500 million awards. We did this first by doing a weather data model, rainfall, wind, surge, and it wasn't enough. So we made what you could say is a mistake in our initial assessment, and we had to redo it and add more information. So we gathered more data. We added demographics, specifically LMI, population, community input, and then FEMA data, the damage assessments. And from that, now we had enough data and we began to move forward. The local assessment, you can say, is once we gave the money to the regional or the COGS, then we went to the locals, and it would be like zooming in on a Google map. You give a large amount, but then you need to go look at your target areas where your money needs to go. Basically, we have 6 steps in our process. You gather the data from the multiple sources that you have. You identify potential target areas using factors like LMI, minority concentration, FEMA claims, and then you verify the data. Pretty important. Then you analyze the data and identify your target areas. This is the area where the gentleman somewhere in this area was wondering, well, what about urgent need? We need to get started with that. You first you have to cross this bridge. Figure out where your needs are. Where should you put the money? And then if there is a bridge to cross where, well, I have more urgent need than anything else, then you figure it out. That's when you call HUD and ask for help or a waiver. Or a waiver. You create your final target areas. I'm trying to be quick because I don't know how much time I have, but if there are any takeaways that I can give you from the state of Texas on what we learned, the first one would be a GIS solution. You're going to have a lot of data. Do not leave it on a spreadsheet. Get all this information and then get a GIS solution with layers so that people can go into your website and click on LMI, population, all the demographics that you have, and it'll allow you to create and circle the areas that you're looking for to see if there is a need in that particular area. Be flexible. The data is only so accurate. Okay? So don't get caught in the trap that your data is perfect, because it is not. We recently had a situation, we are requiring 35% poverty concentration, and there were 2 counties. One county A, area A made it within the county, area B did not. Upon speaking with the people and the stakeholders, area A turned out to have population that were in a multifamily. So they had high LMI, but they were not eligible for the single family. And then when we went to area B, the one that we excluded them, they were at 34.5 concentration. So if we just eked them up a little bit, they would have made it in. So be flexible. Allow for some room. Don't just get stuck with your numbers. Don't over-prioritize. Don't start making priorities for single moms, veterans, elderly. This is hard enough as it is. You need to make nice, small buckets and stay within them. I know you do want to prioritize, and it seems great, but politically you're going to end up with a mess later, so don't create too many priorities. Make your jobs easier. And lastly, set aside some funds for outside of your concentrated areas. You're going to target all these areas. You're going to find that there is a person that lives outside an area that has a severe need, and you wouldn't want to exclude them. You're going to need some money for those folks that aren't exactly fitting in within all the categories that you created. I really want to emphasize that we want to help you. Your peers want to help you. It's snowing. I have not seen snow in about 10 years. It's 89 in Texas right now, and I like to run. I'm not going to be able to run tonight. So I ran yesterday. It was cold enough yesterday. It's going to be colder today. Please feel free to call us, stop us afterwards, stop us tomorrow, and call these folks. You'll see unique situations that maybe you're not experiencing. It really will help you. Okay? Thank you.
Okay. I get to start my presentation with a magic trick. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul Nelson. I'm the Director of Planning for the Town of Union. Just for reference purposes, the Town of Union is part of Broome County. For those of you who are kind enough to send your children to Binghamton University, we appreciate your contributions to the local economy. We were inundated in 2011 by the remnants of Tropical Storm Lee, and it left pretty substantial damage, but we're no strangers to flood events. We've actually had, in the past 7 years, 3 major flood events, 2 of which broke records and are now the historic records of flooding. So we've been around the block a few times, and this is the first time, 2011, that we actually received a direct allocation from HUD under the Disaster Recovery Program. We're a community of about 56,000 people, and we've been receiving block grant on an entitlement basis as a metropolitan city for the past, well, basically since the program started for over 30 years. So we did have experience in running a regular program, and I think that played a large part with the support of our regional office for HUD in Buffalo, of us being able to get an allocation directly to the town instead of having to go through a state allocation. And some of the other commenters have already gone through some of these types of calculations for you here, but one of the things that we've really looked at in doing the needs assessment, we are a participant in the community rating system, and for those of you who may not be familiar with that, it's part of the National Flood Insurance Program, and by participating in the program, we are allowed to have our residents that buy flood insurance get it at a discounted rate. So we've been active in doing outreach for a lot of years with our residents who are living in current floodplain areas, and that's just how the community developed. Most of the urbanized portion of the town is actually in the floodplain, and that's just the way it developed as industry started many years ago along the rivers, and it continued to build, and that's where most of the residential and commercial development actually is located. The picture that you see here is actually a real estate office that in 2006 was flooded. They demolished the building, they built this new building and raised it 2 feet above the base flood elevations, and it was about 1/2 of an inch right in terms of height for the flood that came in 2011. So those of you who are thinking about elevation as part of your needs assessment when you're looking at putting money into programs like that, it pays to just not do the minimum, sometimes go a little bit above what it might be. We were very fortunate. The FEMA people were on the ground very quickly and did the preliminary damage estimates, and that basically formed the basis for the governor requesting that the area be declared a major disaster area, and then the president also issued the federal declaration. Now, in terms of damages, we took about Broome County took about 36% of the statewide damage in terms of severely damaged homes and 30% of the severely damaged businesses. And we are actually the largest community by population in Broome County. And because of the level of damage we suffered, we were able to get that direct allocation. So one of the things we started off with, I mean, as you can imagine, you're all going through this right now. The needs are just staggering. And one of the first things we did was meet with the representatives from the 2 incorporated villages that are within the town. And we asked them to start to submit an inventory of the projects that they would like to see try to get funded under the disaster recovery program. And for those of you who are familiar with the IDIS system for the block grant program, we developed a form that looks pretty close to some of the forms that are used in IDIS to collect data from the municipalities on what types of projects that they wanted to use. So even though the DRS system is not exactly the same, it's similar enough that you can transfer data between the 2 types of forms. So basically the department heads went through and created a summary of the unmet flood needs, and that's how we put together the infrastructure needs. Now, we had water treatment plants that were severely damaged, sewage treatment plants. There was, in addition to a staggering number, well, for our population and number of housing units, we've been in the buyout business since the 1980s as a result of floods. And during this last round, we were approved for another 176 units. So all total since the 1980s, we're pretty close to 300 units now that we've actually acquired and demolished through the FEMA buyout program. And a portion of the CDBG-DR money will be used not only to help local residents with the non-FEMA portion, but we'll be paying all of the demolition and closing costs and things like that for the required match. So that was one of the largest, that's probably between buyouts and acquisition for redevelopment, we're probably looking at, out of our $10 million grant, probably $4 million just for those 2 activities alone. But one of the things that you don't really think of initially, it becomes a problem pretty quickly as you're doing your needs assessment. Obviously, when people's homes are destroyed, you wind up with an awful lot of debris that you need to find a place for. So I know Cindy, you mentioned that you had a problem with that. You didn't have enough landfill space, and that was something that was a priority then. And I'm not sure if you ever got that worked out or not, but actually we talked. We were together in Fort Worth for the training last year, so that's one thing I can't stress enough. I mean, between the folks in the room that have been through this already, between web pages and the contact information that you've been provided with, if you have questions, just call us. We're here to help you, just as the HUD people and the grantees that have gone before us have, responded to our outreach efforts. So, in addition to the housing and, the housing problems, we were very fortunate because our local utility during the height of the flood event had done some flyovers. Someone asked before about inundation maps, and we were able to get that information actually pretty quickly. And from that listing, we developed a mailing survey. We sent out 2,000 surveys to collect information on the unmet needs. Now, part of the problem that you're going to run into with the disaster recovery money is that the money, if people have already spent money making repairs, that may exclude them from participation in some of these programs, because if they took money out of a bank account or they took out loans, they no longer technically have an unmet need. So that's one of the things you're going to have to look at. But after looking at all these surveys that came back, we found that there was 2 components. There are some houses, this one had the foundation washed out from underneath it. That's possibly something that can be repaired. But some of our folks that are in the buyout program this year, this is the 3rd time they've been flooded in 7 years. They've given up, and they're moving on. So, but that survey really was a good opportunity for us to find out, first of all, what they've already spent making repairs and what still needs to be done as part of their repair efforts. We found that even though we didn't have we expected a better response rate from the survey, we only got about 17% of those surveys returned, which for surveys isn't horrible, but given the extent of the magnitude of the flood, we expected more. But we have an awful lot of people that still have not contacted us, and they're more than likely just simply turning the keys into the bank and walking away from the property because even through a buyout program, they may not even receive what they had into their homes. And in addition to the homeowners, we also sent those surveys out to the businesses that were in the area covered by the inundation maps, and we were able to collect some data from those businesses as well. We had a number of national retail chains, Kmart and Gander Mountain in particular, that had their facilities flooded, and they've closed and they haven't reopened. The local Home Depot had 8 feet of water in it. They were out of business for probably 4 months before they could get the store back up and running. I would have liked to have been the manager of the Lowe's across the river. He probably had a pretty sizable bonus commission for increased sales for the quarter. But you can see the extent of some of the flooding just in some of these photographs and the toll it takes on your infrastructure. That was during the flood event. You notice that yellow piece of equipment there is now partially in the creek. One of the problems we were having is that the drainage facilities were not able to carry all of the debris that gets swept down into the creeks, and they were trying to clear it, and the road gave way and truck dropped right into it. So anyway, here's just a bit of advice too. There's the old saying, make the plan and then work the plan. Well, this is our town hall complex, and we actually were flooded in 2006. So after 2006, they went out and they bought this, you see that little blue membrane that's in front of the building there? That's one of those inflatable things. You fill it with water and it's supposed to seal your building off. One of the things that they neglected to do, and I'm not trying to make light of this, it's just something you have to practice these types of things in order to be good at it. You not just look at the directions the day that the floodwaters are coming. They didn't get the system up quite as quickly as they should have, and it didn't get assembled in the order that it was supposed to. In fairness, it probably wouldn't have mattered anyway, because the amount of water that we got into Town Hall and the town in general was more than anybody ever anticipated. But again, this is a situation also, one of the waivers that have been granted in the CDBG-DR legislation is that buildings for the general conduct of government, you can spend money on repairing those facilities. So we're still in the process of getting some type of better system than what you see here, because that obviously has limitations on how effective it can be. This is just a quick thing, just to get back to the infrastructure for a second. One of the reasons we had so many problems with the amount of water that we had, this is a storm detention facility that was built back in the 1960s, and you can see the level of water, how high it came to the top of the levee behind it. These storm control systems are built similar to like your bathroom sink. It has a little hole in the back, and when the water hits a certain level, so it doesn't overflow and kill your bathroom, the water goes out through the spillway. Well, this is the spillway becoming active during that storm. We have actually, I believe, 19 of these facilities throughout Broome County. None of the spillways have ever gone active, and out of 19, 17 went active during that storm event. That means we had an awful lot of water to handle that had never been there before, and that's sort of what it does to your infrastructure. So one of the things that you really have to pay attention to when you're going through and looking at your needs assessment, we did drop quite a bit of money into planning studies. We'll be updating our long-term recovery strategy. That's for those of you in New York State. The New York State Department of State actually funds up to $50,000 for the creation of long-term recovery strategies to help you plan for how you're going to come back from the storm event. And at the end of the day, this was how our allocation broke down when we submitted it for approval. So a lot of work ahead of you. I don't envy you, especially 2 years.
One thing I would add, and Paul just highlighted there too, that they did spend money on planning, and you do get 15% for planning. And one of the things that we did right out of the box is that we commissioned an unmet needs study, and it has come in to be very valuable for us since then, because we've been able to use it with our federal partners. Our governor was able to take it to Housing and Urban Development to express why we need additional funds in this next allocation. We've been able to use it at our state legislature in different things like that. So when they first told me that I had planning dollars, I wasn't really sure how we were going to use them, but we also have commissioned an affordable housing study, which is proving to be very valuable too, to highlight where we have our shortages. So your planning dollars, I think, can really help in addressing some of your unmet needs also. And then if